Quality is critical for the long-term success of any organization, and issues with quality can bring an organization to its knees. Now, most of the videos that you're going to see out there are all about the ISO standards and their 7 or 8 components of their process, but this one is going to do something a little bit different. We're going to talk about the practical ways that I've found to improve quality from the very beginning of the process, which will make it easier and faster and cheaper for you to build quality products and services. Now, people often talk about the quality assurance process at the end of a development cycle or after the product has already been developed, but in truth, it's incredibly important to get quality right early, because a quality defect or a mistake that happens early in the process will snowball and it will trickle down to other parts, and the longer it takes to find and correct a defect or mistake, the more expensive and the more difficult it gets to make that correction. Now, in the dozen years that I've been building high-performance teams and organizations, I've never once found one that achieved that high performance that didn't bake in quality from the start. So here's my 5 areas that you can focus on in order to really build in that quality and get your organization rocking. Area number 1 is common goals. Yeah, I know I talk about this all the time in my videos, but there's a really good reason for that. It's because most organizations don't set goals. And if they do, they don't set them well. Now, in this case, setting a goal well means setting it for the entire organization or for the entire process. See, look, here's what happens. If you create a goal for a team, and then they hand something off to the next team and they have a different goal, and they hand something off to another team and they have another goal, then why should any of those teams care about how well the other teams in the process do? Because their performance measures are tied to their own goals, so they're focused on achieving whatever their own goal is. So instead, if you set one common goal for all of those teams, for everybody in that process, everybody is forced to think about how their actions are going to impact the other pieces of the process. And that's going to make your process more efficient, it's going to make the quality better early on, and that's going to make the development process or the service process or whatever process it is, it's going to make it faster and more efficient and cheaper. Now, if you're following us on this, give us a thumbs up, let us know this is the kind of content you're looking for, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to get all the latest videos and updates. Now, the second thing you can do is make sure that you have clear standards at the team and the organization level. And there's a number of different formats that these standards can take, but one of my favorites is the definition of done. And the definition of done is just a document that a team puts together that says, this is what we have to do in order to call this thing done. Very simple concept, but it's incredibly powerful because the team comes up with it themselves. And what that does is it makes the team think about, what is it that defines quality? How do we define this product as being a quality product? And what is the process that we have to go through to make this a quality product or service? And when the team starts thinking about that, then they're going to start thinking about the quality earlier on, because they know that they have to do that to complete things. And they're always thinking about, how do I improve this definition of done? Because you continually update it. So they're always thinking about, how do I bake more quality into the system early on? Now, the third area I'm going to talk about is repeatable processes. Now, all of these other bits and pieces that I'm talking about do fall into that category of repeatable processes, but it's important to call it out as its own thing as well. So if you can't do something the same way twice, then you can't improve your quality. You can't ensure that you have quality. So you need to make sure that your processes have enough stability that you can generate consistent results. And if they don't, then you need a little bit more rigorous process. But there's something really important to talk about here, and that's the idea that if your process is too rigorous, if your process mandates that everything be done exactly the same every single time, then you also have the potential to lose some of your continuous improvement. And that leads us to the fourth thing I want to talk about, which is continuous improvement. Look, if we just have repeatability over and over and over, everything's going to get stale. We always need to be improving things. So how do we bake that in? And how do we find that balance? Well, the best way I've found to do it is to only improve one thing at a time. And that lets you measure your results. But if you try to improve 3 things at a time, how do you know which one gave you the results? So do the one thing at a time, but always do one thing at a time. In the Agile world, where a lot of my background is from, we use these things called sprints. And a sprint is just a period of time, and we have some repeatability within that sprint. Now, most of the time, sprints are 2 weeks these days. So at the end of every 2 weeks, we pick one new thing to improve. And we do that in a meeting called a retrospective. The team sits down, they talk about their process, they talk about how things went, and they decide what's the most important thing to improve during the next sprint. This is an incredibly powerful tool for continuous improvement and for keeping your quality high. Now, another thing that we do is called the sprint review or the demo. So every 2 weeks or whatever period your sprint is, we sit down and we review the product or service or whatever. We review what was actually delivered. And we do that with our stakeholders or with our customers or whoever we can get in the room, whoever we can find to get feedback, if it's management, anybody that's willing to provide that feedback. We get them in the room, we talk to them, we show them what we did, and we figure out how to improve our products and services. So now you have the process continuous improvement in the retrospective, and you have the product or service continuous improvement with your sprint review. And like I hinted at a minute ago, as you do continuous improvement, you want to measure things. So a great example of measurement and how much that can impact your quality is with Henry Ford. He was doing some experiments with his plants, and he decided to turn the lights down and measure how productivity changed. Well, it turns out productivity went up when the lights went down. And everybody said, well, that's a little strange. Let's find out what happens if we turn the lights up. And productivity went up again. It turned out that it wasn't actually the lights that made a difference in the productivity. It was the fact that somebody was watching and measuring the productivity that made a huge difference. So when you're trying to build in quality, make sure you're measuring it. When you're trying to do continuous improvement, make sure you're measuring it. And just that measurement alone will bring awareness, which will bring higher levels of quality and productivity. And the last area I'm going to talk about is your hiring practices. Look, people are integral to our organizations. Until we come up with some fancy AI that can do the work better than we can, people are the key. And if you're hiring the wrong kind of people who don't have the commitment, who don't have the passion, then your quality and your service is going to be low. So take the time, figure out your hiring practices. I actually have an entire video on writing job descriptions, and I'll throw that up on the screen. If there's anything that you'd like to understand better, feel free to reach out. Don't forget to hit that like button if you got something good from this video, and subscribe and hit the bell to make sure you get all the latest updates. Until next time, thanks for watching.